Welcome to the Perfect Pairing Podcast. And I bet if you listened to the last one, you thought that we forgot about the trivia question, but we were really trying to figure out if you were going to tune into this episode. So here is the answer. This cut, this perpendicular cut on this cigar, when you do a V cut one way and a V cut perpendicular to it, is called a crown cut because it looks like a crown. Get it, Chris? Come on. Catch up with the
I've been on the edge of
game.
my seat for a week now, so
I like it. I like it. Perfect. Well, welcome in, everybody. This week, the cigar of the week is the GTO La Cura Robusto Elite Maduro. And yes, La Cura is the cure in Spanish. So this is the cure to everything you need, this cigar right here.
But before we get to that cure, my name is Chris, and I am the whiskey expert and the cigar noob.
And my name is Adam, and I'm the cigar expert and the whiskey noob.
And today we're pairing this GTO La Cura with a pretty wide net of whiskeys again. We're casting a wide net again. We've got Bushmills Black Bush Irish whiskey. We've got Michter's American whiskey, and we've got Ardbeg 10-year single malt Scotch. And we should probably start them off with their next trivia question and hopefully give them the answer in this episode. What do you think?
There you go. Fair enough.
All right.
I'm going to light up while you go ahead and blow their minds.
Sounds good. This week's trivia question. I'm specifying this to American whiskey. Let's go even more specific. Let's go with bourbon. When you're reading a bourbon label and it says small batch, how many barrels of whiskey does it take to be classified as small batch? No Googling. Save your answer for the end of the episode, and I will answer it at the end. Do you have a guess, Adam, or do you know?
I have a guess, but I don't want to sway people. I feel like I've known this in the past. So maybe if I guess it right, we'll just cut this out.
Okay, go for it.
Is it 180? You don't have to say the answer, but that's my guess.
Okay. All right.
Or you can say the answer and then we'll cut it out.
No, you know what? I'm going to leave you on the edge of your seat too. You got to wait till the end to know if that's right or not.
I really thought that you were going to tell me. Fair enough.
All right. Let me get this. Let's Cigars 101 right off the bat. What's the name of the little band when they put it down at the bottom? What is that have a name to it?
Foot band.
Foot band. Oh, that.
So here we go. Yeah, Cigar 101. We're running right through it. All right. So you've got a cigar, right? Where you cut it is the head. And naturally, where you light it is the foot. And that is why last episode, because everybody watches all of our episodes, when I was talking about lighting that foot evenly, which Chris didn't do, and I know he's going to do this time, even though he's popping that. He's not even lighting in the camera. He's hiding. But
I'm hiding.
Cigar noobs, am I right? I'm just kidding. So when I light this one up, I'm going to see if you guys can see it here. This one has a little bit of a shaggy foot, so the wrapper is wrapped around the foot of the cigar. Why would somebody do that? Because they want to give you that flavor of that wrapper first, and then let the whole blend come together. So you're kind of learning as you go. But here we go. I'm lighting this foot. You want to make sure the whole foot has that little orange glow, right? I'm making sure I get this in the shot. So the whole foot's got this little orange glow for me. Never, never, ever stick the color of the flame in the cigar. That will overheat the cigar and it'll burn it just like burnt popcorn. It'll be a terrible flavor because you burnt your cigar. So it's the same sort of scenario, even though you're lighting something, it is different. There's a way to do it. So you light it with the heat, so you can see I'm not touching. And it's heating up that cigar, not the flame. You don't light a cigar with the flame, you light a cigar with the heat from the lighter.
Well, let's hope I got it right this time because my lighter is tapped out. I don't know how much of that made it through to the audio, but the was me shaking the lighter, getting a little bit in light again. So, but first puff, this is wild. This is unlike something we've had so far. I mean, would you agree with that, or is this just new for me?
100%. And the funniest thing is, so Oscar Rodriguez is the owner of GTO Cigars. He's here in Atlanta all the time. and we've hung out so much. We've done events together. We've done so much great stuff. Could not say enough about him. I've had this cigar probably more than 20 times, but I probably haven't had one in like 8 months to a year. I did not see that coming.
Oh my gosh. Is perfumey a good word? I mean, this is so different.
I don't want
Wow.
to think that I'm smoking perfume in a way, but I'm trying to
Fragrant, floral? I don't know. It's a
floral.
note that I don't get
I
from
can get
whiskey.
floral, which is very interesting because it's a Maduro. So Maduros, you usually try and get that sugar sweetness in it. Obviously, a lot of times it kind of gears towards the chocolate realm. Um, this one is very interesting.
There's something else. I mean, I'm still getting a little bit of a cocoa, a little bit of a leather, but there's something that
Leather. That's what I'm
maybe
getting.
leather, yeah. Maybe it's because I'm newer to cigars, especially this type, that I'm like, this is something different from what I don't have a note for this right now, but it's wild. Yeah.
This is going to be interesting. I already know it. You put together a crazy arrangement of whiskeys. We got a very unique cigar. This is going to be fun.
I am so excited, and the whiskey drinkers know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm so excited for one of these whiskey pairings because now that I've tasted this cigar and I know just how wild this is, things might be interesting. We'll see how it goes. But
Boy, he's
starting
talking
off,
about the art bag.
yeah, I'm
I
talking about
knew it.
it for sure.
Never had it, if in case that's not obvious for everybody out there.
Oh, I can't wait to see what happens right now because it's. Let me tell you this. This is my prediction. It's either going to be amazing or horrendous of a pairing. I don't know which way it's going to go,
Fair enough.
but it's going to be interesting.
All
All
right,
right.
let's go to number one.
Yes, let's start off with Bushmills Black Bush. This is an Irish whiskey. It is triple distilled and okay, yeah, it is on the bottle there. Matured in sherry casks. So this is going to be kind of similar to that flavor of the green spot that we had. That was also an Irish whiskey. This
Oh,
is
okay.
a little bit less expensive. This is right around that $30 range. And I don't want to bias anybody who's drinking or smoking along with us. That's all I'm going to say for right now.
I like it. This is the only one I forgot to remove the. Oh, there we go. The wonderful tape from the sample you gave me.
Yes. Yeah, that can be a little bit of a pain. I've had to do that on camera before too. So I guess while you're doing that, I'm going to talk about what I'm getting from the cigar for all the noobs out there who are like, what am I tasting right now? You're new to cigars, you got our subscription, and now you're like, this is different from anything we've had so far. I would say, and I've said this on previous episodes, I do a lot of the smooth milk chocolate, darker flavors, but very, very mellow, darker flavors. That's really my forte. This is a lot punchier of a darker flavor, but it has like I said, a specific note that I can't put my finger on yet. Definitely some leather, definitely some cocoa, and something else that hopefully I'll have a guess for before the end of this episode.
Yeah. I'm jumping the gun.
Go for it.
How weird. I don't feel like either is changing. I'm getting
Okay.
a little bit of that, like, just like natural whiskey flavor. And I know that's a whiskey noob term. I know it is, but that natural whiskey flavor in that cigar. But I'm still getting the heavy leather. And that Bushmills is staying kind of steady.
All right. So cigar standing strong for sure. Now, for those watching the video version, let me show you how much of this Bushmills is left in my bottle. So I'm very familiar with the flavor of this Bushmills. Big fan. Probably just because I've had this so much, there is a note that stands out like a sore thumb right now to me. I almost always get a peachy honey flavor. And I think you're probably getting some of that honey and some of that oak, some of that typical whiskey flavor. What I've never gotten from Bushmills, and I just got on my first sip, is black licorice. It's got this black licorice, good and plenty type of flavor. that I've truly never gotten from Bushmills. I'm not going to say whether or not I'm a fan of it until we get to our later ratings, but definitely different. I'll say that.
I can see that. I could definitely see that. Okay.
The cigar.
Well, we said it was going to be interesting.
Yeah, no kidding. The cigar just tastes like the cigar, though, for sure. I will say I expected the Bushmills to taste like nothing versus this strong of a cigar, and it still tastes like something. So that's something to be said for it.
This cigar is just standing out on its own and doing its own thing. It's defying everything that we know and just doing it.
It really is.
How interesting. Before we get into the next one, here's a fun fact about GTO cigars and their owner, Oscar Rodriguez. He is an ER doctor.
No way.
Yep, he is fourth generation owner of GTO cigars from, I believe it's the Dominican. And he was born down in the Dominican and grew up on a tobacco farm, all full thing. Said, you know what, I'm going to run my own race, but I'm also going to, live on the family legacy. So he is a doctor and he owns this company. And he smokes about 10 cigars a day.
Full-time doctor?
Full-time.
Wow.
And I can tell you the craziest thing is, this is for all of you guys out there in the whiskey world that may be curious about the side effects of cigars or yada, 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 right? How is it different than cigarettes, vapes, blah, blah, blah? First of all, in case we weren't clear on that in the beginning, and I always like to go to the very basics just in case it's not obvious. For anybody who's new who may be listening, you don't inhale cigars. Puff in, puff out. No down in the lungs.
Since this is episode 4, I really hope somebody didn't just go, you don't?
I think they would have not watched episode 2 if they inhaled the first one.
Probably.
Hopefully they knew what they were getting into. But yeah, he's always my token guy that I talk about when I'm like, well, people are like, it's got health risks, right? I'm like, absolutely. First of all, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you health advice. Any of that, that's a full disclaimer, blah, blah, blah. But I know a doctor that owns a cigar brand and smokes 10 cigars a day. So
I think that speaks for itself.
I mean, if he thought he was going to die, I don't think he'd keep doing it.
Yeah. Maybe if they all taste like this one, I'd still keep doing it. This is not my typical cigar, but I'm thoroughly enjoying this. I don't know if it's because I'm starting to get, we're a few episodes in, maybe I'm starting to get a little bit better at appreciating cigars, but wow.
And it really is the smoke production, which is really just a fun thing just for all the cigar guys or cigar noobs. It's not something that's super important. Oh, it's not producing any smoke naturally. Why not? It's a bad cigar. No, it's just a fun little thing. But this one definitely has a little good smoke production, which is hard to see here, but
big time.
Anyways, should we go to number 2?
Let's dive into number 2. I'm getting it out right now. So number 2, we've got Michter's American Whiskey. Some people call this the Michter's Unblended because you can see their labels are a little bit tough to read. It's like Michter's Unblended American Whiskey, and it also says US 1, and it says some other stuff. It says small batch. That's where I came up with this trivia question. Fun fact about this whiskey, though. So this is almost a bourbon. This is a whiskey that is made how a bourbon is made, but then they put it in barrels that previously had bourbon in them. And you can't do that with bourbon and call it a bourbon. So bourbon has to be a brand new charred oak barrel. It can't have had anything else in it, or actually charred oak container if we're going to get specific. But this is not a brand new charred oak container. They put this in a used charred oak container that used to have bourbon in it, like actual bourbon in it. So just a little fun fact about what we're drinking here.
I like it. It is a fun fact. I had a lot of fun listening, Chris.
Hey, I'm glad to hear that. It's going to be a fun trivia question because I was staring at these labels and I'm like, what can I make a trivia question out of this?
I think we're on to something here now.
Totally different ball game, right?
Mm-hmm. Ooh.
I'm gonna do
Okay.
whiskey first this time.
I've been doing whiskey first. I always do cigar first, and I keep saying that, but I switched at the end of the last episode because I know the cigar. And I don't want to go cigar straight to the whiskey and ruin what I don't may not know about the whiskey. I have had this Michter's before, but I still, again, that's not where my knowledge is. I know what to expect out of this cigar.
Very good point. Yeah. And I always quote unquote am going cigar first because when I light the cigar, I taste the first couple puffs. So that's why I always
Right.
like to go to the whiskey first. It's like a quick refresher of what it tasted like.
Mm. Very interesting. You guys know when we're quiet that we're both like, what is going on? Like,
There's something we're trying to figure out when we're being quiet.
mm-hmm. I'm sorry for those guys that are listening in the car and they're like, did it turn off? What?
I hope that's just anticipation. If you're in the car right now, you're like, ooh, they're thinking something. They're
That's
about to
about to
drop
be
some
good.
kind of knowledge.
Yeah. And then we just go, meh.
This tastes like cigars and whiskey.
All right, I'm gonna let you go first on this one because I need
Okay.
to keep. I do. I've been filling the gap as much as I can, but I do need to keep really analyzing this one because I know how the whiskey is interacting with the cigar. I can't go back to the whiskey yet. I can't figure it out.
That's perfect because I have the opposite problem right now. So here's something's different about the cigar. I can't say what it is. I'm not really sure. Or maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just missing something. The whiskey, though, Michter's American, it's got very bourbony flavors, as you'd expect, because it's basically a bourbon. It's very close to being a bourbon. And it's got a spiciness, it's got an oakiness, it's got a touch of a fruitiness, a touch of something different going on. On my last sip, after I had the cigar, it kind of felt like it cranked up the kind of creamy, I would say light fruit, like almost a melon or maybe a pear, like a not a dark fruit, not a dried fruit like we had in the last episode. This is more like a reminding me of cantaloupe. I don't eat cantaloupe, so maybe I'm wrong. It smells like cantaloupe or it tastes like cantaloupe smells. I don't like cantaloupe. But
Fair enough.
that's what I'm getting from it. Fun fact, I actually don't eat pears either, and I only really know what they taste like because after trying enough whiskeys that have a pear note, it's somewhat common. And reading the notes and people say pear, I'm like, oh, that's what pear tastes like. It's that thing that I keep getting that I don't have a name for, but everybody else calls pear. That's true. That's a true story.
Fair enough.
So when
I
I
mean,
say
do you
pear
like
note,
the pear note in a whiskey?
do I?
Yeah.
It's not my
Okay.
typical whiskey, I would
I
say.
was gonna say if you like the pear note, you should start eating pears.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
But
No, it's
that was very candid. You were like, not really, and I'm like, well, that's why I don't like pears. There
hey,
you
I'm nothing if not consistent.
go. Fair enough. Yep, you're an honest man.
Give me
So
the other half here, though. Like, what's happening to the cigar for you? Because I'm a little bit perplexed, if I'm being honest.
yeah, so the cigar for me is going more towards what you would expect out of a Maduro. I'm getting some sweet, kind of sugary on the first draw on the palate, and then it develops into that heavy leather and really oomph that you expect out of a Maduro. And it's almost making it not as unique as it was, but I still am absolutely loving how this is affecting the cigar. I like every time that I get a crazy just like salivation burst, that is a sign from your body naturally. It's an unbiased sign that you are really enjoying whatever you're having, right? Like
Hmm.
that's why you think of a big juicy fat steak or they lay it down in front of you in the restaurant and you're just like you're ready to just devour it because you know how it tastes and you're excited about it. That's how I'm feeling here. Now, when I go back to the whiskey, I'm still trying to figure it out, but here is where I'm at. It's muting a lot of what I was getting originally. And the more I go back and forth, the more it is muting that Michter's, which is not terribly surprising. We know we have a heavy cigar here, but I feel like it just keeps pulling. Like the La Cura is like, just give me, give me, give me, give me, and it's just taking everything that the Michter's has and ripping it to where it's just kind of whiskey.
I will agree with you on that, because you might have noticed when I even gave mine, I said, Michter's has a spicy, oaky, little bit of fruit. And then when I said what changed, I said it tastes like cantaloupe. It did mute a lot of that spicy, oaky, barrel-y type note that it has to it. It lost some of that. And I think what you said about La Cura was really good, because what I'm thinking, I still have no idea what this flavor note is that is totally different for me.
I would say it's leather. If I had to guess for you and your future knowledge, because I am getting heavy leather.
Okay, maybe you're right. Maybe that's what it is, because it at least gives my palate the feeling, and this is kind of like you said with the salivating. It gives me the feeling, not the taste, but the feeling that like sour candy gives me, or like Sour Patch Kids.
Yep.
Like it gives me that. For those of you who are on the same wavelength as me, I guess, and like weird descriptors, spiky. It's almost spiky on my palate a little bit, and like a sour candy is. And it gets muted for those first couple puffs, and then it kind of works its way back the longer I'm on the cigar and not the whiskey.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And what I would say is that sweetness you're getting is the Maduro. That
Okay.
is what a Maduro does. It's sweetness. It turns the starch into sugar when you make a Maduro wrapper. That's
Okay.
what you're doing. And so on every Maduro that is done well, and obviously Oscar and his family have been doing it for 4 generations, they know what they're doing. And that's why you're getting that pure, just kind of salivation burst from the sweetness.
Hey, and speaking of what they're doing, let's talk about this burn line for a second. For those watching the video, dude, it's like a razor blade. Maybe I'm getting better at lighting cigars. I don't know, but
No, I mean, that I would say that's part of it. Mine has been interesting. I mean, it is a little uneven, but it has been correcting as we've been going along. Mine has a hint too easy of a draw. Just a
really.
hint. It's a little rolled loose rather than like, we talk about drinking a milkshake through a small straw.
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact opposite. It's like, a fat McDonald's straw. I don't even know if McDonald's makes those fat straws anymore, but
Yeah,
like the fat McDonald's straw type situation. Did that just show hearts when I did a heart? Did you see that?
I did not.
That was
Did it
weird.
catch on to
Look,
it?
look,
I hope that stays with the recording. I hope you guys can see that. Now I gotta try it.
how
Is it going?
StreamYard's genius.
Yeah, they got some AI going. My heart's not good
Seriously,
enough.
how did
It's not seeing it.
yeah, don't start doing gang signs. Blur.
I gotta be careful with what I'm doing. What if it just started like putting that across the screen? That'd be bad.
This is where you can buy drugs.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, actually, you can go to shopdreamercigars.com and buy some tobacco.
Buy
But
tobacco. Yeah. If
anyways,
you are of age.
if you are of age, of course, absolutely. But Chris, you know what I just realized?
What's that?
We have been skimping on our listeners. We need to give them a deal.
Oh,
We
I
need to
like
give
it.
them a deal.
You're surprising me with this too. I'm liking this. What's happening?
10% off for all the listeners out there of the Perfect Pairing Club, so you guys can have these cigars with us, right? If you're listening to this one, it is right probably, I think it might be too late for next month for April, but you can still join right now, 10% off if you use code PPP, Perfect Pairing Podcast 10. All caps, PPP 10, 10% off for everybody. Why not? Let's just give the whole house away.
I like it. I like it. You guys can dive in and try some of these pairings with us, especially those of you guys coming over from the Whiskey Noob side. If you got these whiskeys already, a lot of these are ones I've talked about before. You can do the pairings right along with us, which I think is a lot of fun. That was not a planned thing, by the way. So I want everybody to know that that's the truth. That's the truth. I did not know that we were doing that right now, but I think that's a fantastic idea.
Look at the correction.
Oh my gosh, you didn't touch that up at all.
No, not a lick.
That is fantastic. That's what I'm saying.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That is called a freaking master at your craft right there. I literally wasn't touching it.
Yep. As I established in like episode 2 or 1 of the episodes, I was like, I'm really bad at lighting cigars and getting a good burn. And that's why I had to point that out, because I was like, this is a razor blade of a burn line right now. It was fantastic.
Phenomenal. Well, let's get into number 3.
Are you ready?
Maybe, doing a filibuster here. And
are you sitting down, I hope?
Let me stand up, everybody. No,
yeah. All right.
Oh, boy.
We're going to smell the Ardbeg before we taste it, because as soon as you pour it, you're going to smell it. So Ardbeg 10-year. This is a single malt scotch, as I mentioned, but it's not going to be like any single malt scotch that we've had on the show yet, right? Right. I don't think so, because it is an Islay single malt scotch. Now, not all Islas, but a lot are known for being peated, which this is. All that means is they do something in the process. I don't need to get too in depth here, but they do something in the process that adds this peaty smoke flavor to it. Basically, they burn what is known as peat underneath the barley. They smoke that barley with the peat smoke, and it gives a flavor that can only be described as smoky. I don't know how else to put it. So
I would agree with that.
I can't wait to see how it interacts with the cigar. We've got a full body, punchy, strong cigar with a full body, punchy whiskey. I'm very intrigued to see what happens.
This is a heavyweight bout. I'm smelling, like you said, you pour this thing, you smell it. That peat is heavy. You can't even put your nose in for. I can't. I gotta keep it out. It smells delicious though.
Yeah, it's something totally different. So I'm gonna get a good taste of it on my palate before I go cigar.
Yeah,
and I can't wait to see what happens.
Man, that is a campfire.
Mm-hmm.
And here, so maybe I'll ask you, and you can help me go through this. I am not a big Scotch guy.
Okay.
What I have learned, I have been really trying to pay attention. I've got some buddies that are heavy Scotch guys, and have been trying to teach me so I can, help everybody out there that we're trying to educate. Scotch is more really about wetting the tongue than a sip. Because I used to sip it and I think I am a little big of a sipper, even when it comes to bourbon, on neat. Like the neat bourbon, I feel like I take maybe a too big of a sip, maybe. And if I do that with Scotch, I'm usually like, whoa.
Okay. I see exactly what you're saying. I would apply that to all of whiskey. You bring up a great point that I forgot I wanted to actually bring up. So even with bourbon, you really want to make sure you are wetting your tongue. And you can take slightly bigger sips, I'd say, with bourbon, especially if you are in your position where you're not super big into Scotch. Because Scotch can be a little bit heavy on your palate, especially depending on the Scotch, especially this Ardbeg 10-year. So that's accurate. The other thing is a lot of people, they skip to the sip, so they sip it and swallow it like that, and they think that's going to make it burn less, and it doesn't. So actually holding it on your tongue, wetting your whole tongue, there's actually a name for it called the Kentucky Chew for bourbon, where you sip some of it and you basically chew it, similar to what you do to cigar smoke a lot of the time. You just chew it and get it all over your palate, and that helps with the flavor. Now, I recently came up with a tip, and there are people who are like, everybody knows that. And I'm like, well, that's weird because nobody's ever taught me this before. So I don't think anybody's ever put it to words. Retrohaling your cigar. You open up that nasal cavity, you let the smoke come out. Doing that with the fumes of the whiskey, not the liquid. I gotta be very clear. Keep the liquid in your mouth. The fumes of the whiskey, agitate it, chew it, move your tongue around, and let the fumes come out of your nasal cavity. A lot of people do this on accident. They just do it. But if you don't, doing it intentionally helps a ton. So try to just chew that whiskey and let the fumes come out of your nasal cavity. I just call it retrohaling the whiskey fumes because that's basically what you're doing. It helps a ton. And I just recently started doing this more deliberately, I would say, and it's brought my tastings to a totally different level.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go for it.
When you get that, I'm trying to figure out, it's almost like a hay flavor in a scotch, but it's a little like heavier. I can't describe it.
I think I know exactly what you're describing right now.
Yeah.
Are you asking what the name of that is?
Sure. Yeah.
That, from what you're describing right now, I would say is what a Scotch drinker would just call maltiness. It's the malted barley has, it's kind of like hay. It's like a mix of a fresh cut hay field and you are chewing on dry oatmeal. It's like, that's the best way I can put it.
Yep. Just say, guys, hopefully this is what you guys are doing on occasion for both of us. You're going, yes, dude, nail it. That's exactly what I was thinking. Because that's what Chris just did for me. I mean, that maltiness is going all over this cigar, and it is bursting on my palate. Just absolutely wonderful. Oh my gosh, like this is I'm having a great time with this pairing. I'm trying to figure out what the cigar is doing to the scotch. Get a little bit of that leather hint in it, but I feel like for me, I've always struggled with this going from cigar to scotch. Definitely a heavily peated scotch because it's already got that smokiness. So changing it is a challenge.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this, and I might be able to tell you what it's doing to the scotch, just because I've drank Ardbeg quite a bit. What would you say are the main couple of notes you're getting from the Ardbeg right now?
I would say malt, peat, and then let me take a sip. I'm gonna take another puff.
Yeah, go for it. Because there's a few specific things from the Ardbeg that I think, depending on what you say, I'll be able to tell you how it might be changing it a little bit.
There's a sweetness hidden in there.
True.
Yeah?
Yes.
See, this is what I'm saying.
Yep.
Breakthroughs, guys. Breakthroughs. Here we go.
Yes. So here's what I'll say. The sweetness of the Ardbeg, especially Ardbeg, is really difficult for people to get, especially people who are very new to whiskey. And so the cigar is really helping that. It is making this Ardbeg sweeter. You said maltiness before you said peat, which is like a miracle with Ardbeg. Usually you'd be like, this is like a burnt tire, somebody poured water on a campfire, and some maltiness. So this cigar is tempering the peat of that scotch in a beautiful way. Like, I'm really enjoying this pairing.
It's matching it. I feel like it's, the Artbeg's throwing a haymaker and the GTO's like, all right, here we go. Haymaker right back. And it kind of cancels it out.
Totally. That's what's happening. It's this is a heavyweight pairing for sure.
Yes, 100%. So make sure you have a meal before this.
Yeah, good call.
If you do it. But here's where I'm going to go. And I agree with the sugar, right? The sweetness. Because again, we're talking about that Maduro wrapper has a sweetness. That's why it's pulling it out of the Ardbeg. Now, if you are a heavy cigar guy, like me, and you're not a Scotch guy yet, this is it. Yes. This is the pairing you need to try. This is the one that's going to help you, because it's helping me. So I'm just saying what I'm experiencing. This is going to help you get to the Scotch level. And further, hopefully, we're definitely going to have some more Maduros on, and we're definitely going to have some more Scotch. So hopefully we see this as episodes grow, and we're going to see these Maduros match with some Scotches that you guys can learn. Go to your local lounge, say, where is the La Cura, and where is your peated Scotch? And if it's the Ardbeg, even better. Like, that's where you can go if you're a cigar guy.
Yeah, I mean, you took the word right out of my mouth. That's actually exactly what I was gonna say, and I'm not just stroking your ego right now. I was gonna say it. My whiskey drinkers who bought the Ardbeg, you bought the Lefroy. I can't speak for the other ones, but I have a theory. You bought the Ardbeg, you bought the Lefroy, you brought that heavily peated Scotch. You drank it once, you put it on the back of your shelf, and you said, "Never again. You hurt me. I'll never come back to you."
Yeah.
This cigar might be your reason to do that because this is the least peaty a peated Scotch has ever tasted to me. It is. If you've ever drank a peated Scotch and thought, I wonder what people like about this cigar is truly cranking up the things that people like about it and cranking down the things that you don't like about it. Now, the flip side of that coin is if you go to peated Scotch because you like that burnt rubber, you like that campfire, you like that overwhelming smoke, this is toning it down quite a bit. So the flip side of that coin is you might not like that. But I know a lot of people who try out that peated Scotch and they don't like it for that reason. And this is a gateway into what people like about peated Scotch. 100%.
I would have to agree with that. Now, the hard part.
The hard part.
Going into the ratings, guys. This is always the hardest part. I'm gonna start making my way back through, going back to the Bushmills, Blackbush, the Michters. I think I got a general feeling overall,
Mm-hmm.
but I also thought that last episode and it got flipped on its head. So this is the part where I go, I got this, and then I go, crap.
Yeah, this is gonna be a tough one for sure. At least for I've got two of them in my head that I'm a little bit torn about what direction I go. So I gotta really do some thinking here.
Oof. Wow, that Bushmills is good. Okay. Going back through, we've got the ratings. Do you want to go ahead and reveal that I was right about the whole small batch?
Let's talk about the trivia question. So, to recap, specifically when it comes to bourbon whiskey, how many barrels does it take? What's the limit to no longer be small batch? So if you're under this many barrels, you're a small batch bourbon. The answer is there is no answer. It's a trick question.
Oh, you piece of crap.
Small batch, fun fact, is not a regulated term. So it can be abused and it can mean whatever you want it to mean. It can come from a mega distiller who says, compared to all of our other batches, this whiskey is smaller batch. And so they call it small batch.
That's fair.
So you got to be careful. It's not a regulated term.
Well, guys, I am Adam, and I'm the whiskey noob.
hey, it happens. It's a very common
totally
misconception
for that
people.
one too.
I did.
When I was like, I know the number. I know it. I've heard it before. You were like, yeah, sure, yeah.
I'm like, hey, yeah, you know. When you said I know it, I was like, oh, he's heard that it's a myth before. He said 180, and I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. I don't know.
Whatever. I'm gonna find the most randomest cigar thing next episode and make you guess on live.
I don't think I've known the answers to any of them yet. So
I'm sure you didn't know the crown cut. So
yeah, I definitely didn't know that. I'm gonna write down my ratings to keep myself honest here, so that I can't change as we go through them, because
I like that.
I'm worried that I'm gonna change.
While you do that, I'm gonna go through my 1 through 3.
Okay, yes, let's do that.
Number 3 is Michter's. It just ran over it. I'm not gonna say it was horrible, but it just, when you have a pairing and you're specifically saying I'm gonna have a pairing, you don't want that. You want them to play, even if it's an antagonistic pairing where only one's changing. The cigar was just, I mean, this was David and Goliath, and this was the mix because Goliath beat the crap out of David.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say. Number 2 for me was the Bushmills, which I did not see coming in the very beginning. I would say it is a very good overall pairing. I think they played well together. I do think it was complementary. But overall, that Ardbeg was really enjoyable. That's my number 1. Again, I said it last episode, I really love different. I like experiencing something I haven't had before. and being able to get that Scotch experience for me, put it at number one automatically.
All right. Yeah, I'm very close to your rankings, except I got one change, and this is the two that were almost tied. I'm gonna put Bushmills at number 3. And the main reason being, you're gonna see with the ratings, this was close, but Bushmills is at number 3 because I felt like they complemented each other. I felt like it was a nice pairing. I felt like with the Michter's, that weird melony flavor that I got was at least something new. But you're totally right that it muted everything else about the Michter's. So I just kind of like that there was something different with it.
Fair.
Still not a bad pairing, but definitely muted a lot of those bourbony barrely characteristics that a lot of people go to Michter's for. It muted that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's obvious. The Ardbeg was the star of the show for me too. I never would have guessed a peated Scotch could taste the way that this peated Scotch tastes right now. And I've had cigar pairings. I haven't gotten super in depth with them up until this podcast. This is one of the most drastic changes of a whiskey that I've seen before. It was very impressive. So that's got to be number 1 for me.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. All right, pause real quick. You've been glitching.
Oh, okay.
Okay, no. I thought maybe my phone was dying, but I got 34% still.
Okay. The good news is at least it does local recordings on StreamYard, so you'll have
Yeah, you
whatever.
would have it. Too.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
At least that's the way I set it up. That both of us could get it.
Yep. Exactly. It should take our local recordings. Yep.
Perfect. All right. Back to it. We're gonna go into the ratings.
Yeah, let's do this thing. Let's rate these. I started off last episode. I'm gonna put you on the hot seat. Go ahead with your first rating.
Oh boy. Okay. I'm gonna start with the easy one then. I'm gonna go Ardbeg, and I'm going to flat 9.
Okay.
I like. Nope. I just changed it. It's 8.9. Because of our flatline rating, I wouldn't see it and say no duh. There's other things. I don't think anything today, but I think there's other bourbons, whiskeys that I would have gone yes quicker than the Ardbeg. So I'm choosing 8.9 on that. I think it was still beautiful, absolutely great pairing. 8.9 should say that, but it's not an automatic grab.
I'm right there with you. I said 8.6 for the same reason. I said there's probably, I'm trying to like picture my shelf downstairs. There might be something that goes better with this, but I think the 8 to 9 range, like up until 9, is really like if somebody handed you this at a lounge, you'd be like, whoa, like you'd be like mind blown by it. And I was, but there might be something better out there.
So I'm going to go back down the list. The Michter's, for me, I'm going, I hate being mean to people, but I'm going to go 3.5.
All right.
So 3.5, again, the steamroll overall is hard, but here's why I didn't give it just like a 1 or something. I didn't have a bad time. Right? Like, there's sometimes, and because I'm cigar first in my head, where I grab a cigar and I want it to stay. I don't want it to change. And I just want a little whiskey to, sit with it, but I don't want it to touch my cigar. I want to have this cigar, enjoy this cigar, and sip on something. And that would be this pairing.
Yeah, that's fair. I gave the Michter's a 5.5 because it didn't taste like Michter's. So if I was sitting down and I was like, I want this Michter's to taste like Michter's, I would have been disappointed. But it did, at least to me, have a weird sweetness that was different, and at least made it where if I wouldn't throw it out. I wouldn't be like I'm gonna get something different to pair with, but I would be like, oh, I could have picked something better for sure.
Yep, I have to fully agree on that one. Side note, real quick, everybody. I've asked twice. When your third ash is holding well on the cigar, that is beautiful construction. Typically, the first ash will hold way better than the rest of the ashes that you have. Third ash doing this, I mean, look at this. Almost about an inch.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been super nice. I even had a really bad burn there for a second because I let it set too long. I flipped it over. It corrected itself. It's been burning really nice.
Just wicked stuff there, Oscar. Bushmills. This one was tough for me. I'm going, and this is based on the last one, right? We want to try and stay consistent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going a 7.8 because it was a little bit better than I believe it was the Russells that I gave a 7.5 last time.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it was a little bit better than that. I wouldn't scream to the mountaintops about it. I wouldn't, go and just be everybody needs to go try this Bushmills Black Bush with the GTO La Cura. I wouldn't be doing that, but if you handed it to me, I'm gonna be excited about it. And that's where I thought.
Okay. Okay. Here's my moment of transparency here. I loved the Bushmills on the first few puffs. When I went back, and maybe this is because of the Ardbeg a little bit, it was so muted. I actually put it at a 5.0. So but it was really close with Mickers. I had Mickers at 5.5. I had Bushmills at 5.0. I felt that it was very muted, and it gained by the end of the cigar, it gained this note that was a little bit unpleasant for me. And that's a subjective thing. It gained a little bit of a funk that I wasn't a very big fan of. But I still kept it at a 5 because I feel like below 5 for me is like, I don't know about this. This was
Yeah.
still one that if I had it, I'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah, this is a cigar and a whiskey. It's not bad. I'm not offended by it. It's just I felt like I could grab something better than it fairly easily from my shelf. That's where I was with it.
That is absolutely fair enough. And it's funny you say that because I feel like this one is, and I think I may have said complimentary earlier, but I keep going back to it, and I'm almost out of it, but I have kept sipping on it at the end of this. I would say it's antagonistic, actually, 100%. And it's because of what you're just saying. There's a lot of muteness going on, like it's getting muted and muted, but it keeps enhancing that cigar. And the reason why it was higher for me is because I'm cigar focused, and you're whiskey focused, so you're like, oh, you ruined my whiskey that I liked. What the hell?
Yep, that was going to be my guess as well because it is when you go back to the cigar, it is nice. It brings out a sweetness to it that's
Yeah.
really enjoyable. My guess was the same thing actually. But yeah, just being a big fan of Blackbush, and that's something to be said too. We always say these could be great separately, and together they're just not great. The reason Blackbush got rated so low for me as a pairing is because alone I like it so much. And so when it got muted, I was like, it's just I know Blackbush can look better than this. That sound that's gonna get clipped for sure. I
Oh
know
boy.
that the Bushmills can be better than this. So that was the reason that I lowered that rating a little bit.
Oh, I love it. I think this one just did not disappoint. We said it was going to be interesting. That was interesting, A to Z, all the way through. Even as we went back to it, I think this was interesting. So if you guys didn't get the subscription this time, make sure you grab it because I'm super curious about what your opinions are. And if you're not already in the Discord, go hop in the Discord. Hop in the Discord. Everybody's talking about all these pairings, what they're pairing, what if they were able to grab the same pairings we had and give their own ratings, but also, hey, did you know that X whiskey paired amazing with that cigar? And that's what I think Adam and Chris would have picked over that art bag and put it above a 9. So there's so much conversation going on and so much education through talking to everybody about it. So that's where you can join the community. Make sure that you join the Discord for the Perfect Pairing podcast. And I'm going to give one last plug because it was a surprise. 10% off the Perfect Pairing Club because I love you guys. And, Chris and I are just having a good time. So we want to just give all our money away because who cares about being rich? Making money's overrated. We'll just give you guys all the value. So PPP 10, all caps, 10% off the Perfect Pairing Club for as long as we feel like being generous. So grab it as soon as you can.
I like the sound of that. Absolutely. I recommend it. This has been very good. You surprised me a few times. I'm new to cigars, and these have been surprising me.
And then some of these are little boutique, and some of them have been, well-known brands. So we're gonna keep it rolling, but I'd say overall this was a successful first month of the Perfect Pairing Club, and it's only up for here, Chris.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Love it. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and pour me some more art bag. So, cheers.
Cheers.